The past is in the past. Did you ever feel that way with the narcissist in your life? With that toxic person that would keep bringing up maybe your mistakes or keep bringing up things that you've dealt with or that you've messed up in different areas, but you can never bring up theirs? That's because a lot of times narcissists look and view the past as being in the past. You can't bring it up. You can't bring something that happened in the past back up to them. The problem is you might be thinking, hey, it's not really in the past. It happened 5 minutes ago. It happened just a few minutes ago, and we haven't been able to have a chance to resolve it. But for a narcissist, they're like, no, you can't bring up the past because the past is in the past. If you guys are new here, my name is Ben Taylor. I'm a self-aware narcissist on this channel to provide awareness, growth, healing, and change. That's what Raw Motivation stands for, to help people understand what narcissism actually is, how it looks like. And we've talked to a lot of different people that have even been in relationships with narcissists that are therapists, that are people in counseling, that are people taking their clinicals, all different types of things. And the one thing they almost always seem to say completely across the board is the idea of like, we've learned about this in school, but it doesn't look like this in real life. That's why there's a lot of people out there that think they know about narcissism. They think it's just the person taking selfies of themselves, but they don't actually see what's it look like in the covert aspect, in the actual aspect that they see on a day-to-day basis. So stick around. If you guys haven't had a chance to be able to follow on all the different platforms, check out TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn. We're also on Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, Spotify, all that kind of stuff under Raw Motivations. So would love to have you follow there. Be super great to be able to get you involved in community of a bunch of other people that are learning and growing just like you in this process. If you want to take your learning to another level, then join the NARC app community. If you look it up, it's narcapp.com. It's narcapp.com. It stands for Narcissistic Abuse Recovery Community. Because that's what it's important about, is when you're learning, when you're getting out there and figuring out this is what's actually happening, you need people around you that are going to help support you. So there's places in there to track your no contact, to journal your truth, to take courses, but to interact and ask people questions. Get advice from people that are going through the same exact stuff that you're going through. So I'd love to have you interact with us on there. You can go in, you can ask questions throughout the week. They get answered every single Monday. You can join our monthly Zoom calls with people all across the globe to be able to interact, build community, and help you heal, grow, and change. That's narcapp.com. If you need to get to the truth, but you haven't had a chance to be able to sit down and a blank piece of paper seems too overwhelming, we'd love to invite you to check out the journal that we wrote, and it's From Fantasy to Reality. It's on Amazon. Feel free to be able to check that out. If you want to talk to me sometime, as far as like working with you one-on-one to help you break free of the trauma bond, work through the detox phase, and develop healthy boundaries moving forward, go to rawmotivations.com. We'd love to reach out to you and we'd love to talk to you there. All right, let's dive into the thing we're going to talk about today, which is the past is in the past. A lot of times, the narcissist will bring up your past. Did you ever have that? Did you have the narcissist actually bring up your past in the relationship and be like, you remember that thing that you did? Like, I cannot believe you did that. And you're like, that was like 5 years ago. Like, why are you even bringing that up? I thought we worked through that. No, like I'm still mad at you for that. Like, you'll see a lot of times narcissists that will bring up stuff that's in the distant past and they'll hold it over your head. They'll use it to manipulate you. They'll use it to make sure that they get out of you what they want in that moment. Maybe they're trying to convince you to do something or convince you that their way is better or whatever it might be. A lot of aspects of it, the narcissist will bring up your past to manipulate you. They'll also bring it up to control you. To be able to say, hey, you can't go out with that friend because you interacted with them a year ago. And you're like, but they'll use so many different things to control you. And then they'll also use your past to guilt you, to make sure that you fall in line underneath the things that they want you to fall in line with. Maybe that's accusing you of cheating in the past, or maybe that's bringing up something that you said about them in the past. Whatever it might be, they'll use the phrases and the things that you've said, the things that you've done to guilt you. Sometimes they'll bring up your past before you guys were even together and use that as a way to manipulate, to control, and to guilt you in other aspects. And the thing is, a lot of times they get so confusing of like, wait a second, why are you bringing up my past, but I can't bring up yours? Oftentimes they'll bring up stuff that you're doing and they'll say like, oh, this is something you're doing, but they're doing the same thing. And you get like, wait a second, this seems really hypocritical. Well, the thing with narcissists is they don't like to look at the past because they don't like to have reflection. They don't like to have self-reflection in themselves to identify where they are. When you think of like a map, or when you think of like you're going to a destination, maybe you're going on a vacation or something like that, you know where you want to go. But unless you identify on the map, on the GPS of where you're starting, all the directions are going to be bad directions because they don't know where you're coming from. A narcissist doesn't want to have the self-reflection, and oftentimes they're avoiding that. So as a result, when they try to script out where they want to go in life, they're not actually acknowledging where they are. So as a result, they can't really get there. Narcissist hates the idea of having self-reflection because then they have to go back and look at themselves and see what actually happened. A lot of times they'll look at past arguments, past things, and they'll pretend they didn't actually happen because they don't want to deal with it. They don't want to deal with shame and guilt and things like that that are inside that are telling them one thing that they don't want to hear. Did you ever have that moment where you might have had a big argument, or you might have had, a big blow up or discussion or something like that, and they leave and then they walk back in a few minutes later and they're like, okay, what's for supper? And all of a sudden you're just like, how can I even think about that right now? Because like we just had this giant like blow up, knockout, drag out fight, and then you come back in, you're completely changing the subject. Well, what I like to call it sometimes is an idea of like the salesman effect. Of the salesman already knows that you want to buy, and they're already putting that assumption, that idea out there that it's not a big deal, that you're going to come here and you're going to buy. So like, for instance, let's say you walk on a car lot and they say like, hey, which one do you want to take home today? It's like the idea that I'm already implying that you're going to take home a car, that you're going to buy a product. Well, a lot of times you have a narcissist that they walk back in, they're like, hey, what's for supper? Because they want to imply the idea that what just happened wasn't that big a deal. As a result, it starts to make you feel stupid for even bringing it up. I'm like, well, why would I bring it up? Like, he didn't think it's a big deal. Like, she didn't seem to talk about it afterwards, so it must not be that big of a deal. And it makes you feel like, hey, I shouldn't bring this up because they're not viewing it as a big deal, so I guess it's not that big a deal. And it's a way that a lot of times victims will end up getting in this cycle even more because of how the narcissist is coming back in and treating it like it wasn't that big of a deal, and also ignoring the fact that they need to deal with it. You also have the narcissist that comes in and will discount you and will say that you're oversensitive for bringing up something. Like, can't we leave that in the past? Like, I thought we worked through that. They'll normally say the past has to be the past. Like, they don't want to acknowledge the things that have happened. I thought we dealt with this already. Why are you bringing this up again? All different types of things. The past has to be in the past. Why? The past has to be in the past for the narcissist because the past is riddled with shame. It's riddled with guilt and shame that they don't want to acknowledge. Like, that argument that just happened, the reason why it happened was because I was so awful to you. But I don't want to admit that, because if I admit that it means that I'm not right, that I'm not the good person with those decisions that I just made. So a lot of times when they're going away from the past, they're running from it. They're running from trauma and abuse, maybe some that happened in their own life, but oftentimes the trauma and abuse that they put on other people that they know they caused. It's not just like, oh, oops, you got abused. Like, no, I know that this caused this negative reaction, but I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to deal with any regrets. I don't want to deal with any lies. I don't want to deal with any manipulation, any gaslighting, anything like that. I got to run away from it. And as a result, a lot of times it feels like narcissists try to gaslight themselves into thinking that those problems don't exist. You see, if I can take those problems and I can compartmentalize, I can put them away, I can acknowledge that, hey, those don't exist, then I can start believing the lie that I'm a good person. So even though I hurt you, even though I destroyed a relationship, even though I broke your trust, even though I lied to you, let me box it up, let me push it aside, and then be able to live with the idea and the thought process that I'm a good person. And the thing is, over a period of time, I keep saying it over and over and over. I keep trying to convince myself that it's real. If I can convince myself that it's real, then I don't have to acknowledge and own up to the fact that, no, I'm actually not a good person because of how I was acting and behaving. You see, for a narcissist, it's easier to justify a lie or to blame that lie on someone else than it is to own their own truth. Most people are like, it'd be so much easier just to be honest, and then you wouldn't have to lie. You wouldn't have to bring this all up. Yes, 100%. That's a lot easier for most people. But for a narcissist, the mind doesn't work that way. It's how do I avoid the accountability and responsibility? How do I get away from it as best I can? Well, let me do it by lying, by gaslighting, by manipulating, by love bombing, by doing anything to distort your reality so that you don't pay attention to me. You don't pay attention to the stuff that's inside that I don't want to deal with, that I don't want to be vulnerable with. But instead, I want you to focus on my mask. that I'm a good person, that I love you, that I care about you while I'm still abusing you and justifying it. The thing is, a lot of narcissists don't want to talk about the past. And so some people are like, wait a second, you're a narcissist, you're a self-aware narcissist on here. Well, I want to bring up the past a lot of times because I don't want to forget what's there. You might have heard like the phrase, a lot of times that people that don't learn from the past are doomed to repeat it. And that's typically what's happening with a narcissist, is they don't want to look at the past. They're not really looking at the future. They're only like, what's the here and now? What's the impulsive moment that I have to do to buy love, to interact with people a certain way, to get what I want? And they're not really thinking about what's happened in the past. For me, I try to keep the past not super far away and not super close, but I try to keep it kind of like in the middle. Like understanding, hey, this no longer defines me as a person, but it is developing me to be someone completely different because I want to learn from what I've done and continue to grow, heal, and change to be able to help others on a day-to-day basis.